ready.
These innovations prove that thinking different goes a long way.
If you press the digital crown, it returns to the home screen just as you would expect it to.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Apple innovations.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
For this list, we're focusing on Apple products that had the biggest cultural impact, both upon their release and afterward, rather than products whose popularity fizzled out. Number 10. The Apple II. Although it's the second major series of computers that Apple produced in the late 70s, it was also one of the first truly successful home computers when it was released in 1977.
If you have a sloppiness about your whole approach, eventually it's going to lead to some of the more disastrous problems, particularly later in your own career.
Mainly designed by Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, this product fit into his vision of a, quote, small, reliable, convenient to use, and inexpensive personal computer, as well as an invention consumers could simply buy, plug in, and use.
Now we're going to go ahead and flip this Taj Mahal around to paste it down below.
8-bit with color graphics capability and originally using audio cassette tapes as storage, sales of the Apple II jumped in 1979 with the release of the VisiCalc spreadsheet program, which made it especially popular with business people and turned it into a legitimate work tool.
The Apple II has proven to be a sturdy and persistent computer with a loyal following of devoted fans.
Number 9. The MacBook Air.
What is the MacBook Air? In a sentence, it's the world's thinnest notebook.
It may not be as high performance as the high-end MacBook Pro, but this entry in the MacBook lineup has become the best-selling computer in Apple's arsenal. Why? Well, it's lightweight and fairly powerful.
Everything that we've learned designing really small mobile devices culminates in the new MacBook Air.
To have a computer this light and thin with a full-sized screen and keyboard, as well as Apple's signature OS on board, is pretty impressive.
And with the ambient light sensor, it's also backlit.
Essentially replacing the old white MacBook when it was retired in 2011, and fitting somewhere in between a smartphone and a regular laptop. The Air may be missing key features like an optical drive, but it more than makes up for its shortcomings with the features it does have. Number 8. Mac OS X.
It's my pleasure today to announce Mac OS X.
It launched back in 2001, and Apple has been consistently updating it ever since. Mac OS X replaced Apple's previous operating system, Mac OS, which had been used since 1984. And while Microsoft's Windows is still more widely used, Mac OS X has received consistent praise above and beyond its competition. In terms of simplicity, style, speed, and features like iChat, Spotlight Search, and more, which make sure all Apple products work together.
But took them ultimately to a place that embodies the beauty and power of OS X. We discovered OS X Yosemite.
Its evolution over the years has been truly remarkable. We can only guess what the next iteration will be able to do.
OS X, of course, started with the bold design of Aqua. And over the years, it's evolved to the refined look we all love today in Mavericks. Well, with Yosemite, we continue this evolution.
Number 7. The MacBook.
I don't know how we could make something any more essential, any simpler than the new MacBook.
The MacBook family came to include machines like the Pro and the Air, but from 2006 to 2011, the plain old MacBook made a name for itself as the best-selling Macintosh ever.
With the stunning Retina display.
Found at the low end of the price spectrum compared to other Apple laptops, it was designed as a merge of the PowerBook and iBook, targeted to students and average consumers, and it essentially helped make the desktop obsolete.
It's small and compact, and I can put it in my backpack.
Though originally offered in black and white, and though it went through several design changes before it was discontinued, the classic white model became probably the best-known incarnation. And from day one, compared favorably in terms of speed and performance to the higher-end Pro.
We were working for months developing just the right texture, just so that the coefficient of friction was absolutely optimal for tracking, gestures, and actually making the click.
Number 6. The iPad. Criticized by some upon its release as overhyped, unnecessary, and, quote, just a big iPhone, the iPad proved detractors very, very wrong.
Have you heard that Apple just announced the new iPad Maxi today?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we actually happen to have a prototype here. We're showing it to people and asking them what they think about it, if you want to take a look.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, it's nice. Actually, it is. Pretty nice.
Is this something that you could see yourself purchasing?
Yes, ma'am.
Basically pioneering the idea of the tablet, the original 9.7-inch screen iPad was a cross between the iPod Touch and the MacBook, and it could do almost everything you'd ever want it to do. Take pictures and shoot video? Sure. Play games and music? Of course. Browse the internet? Duh. Introduced in 2010 as proof that Steve Jobs and Apple were not done innovating. Over 200 million iPads have been sold since it first hit the market, with new additions like the Air and the Mini coming along to fill even more new niches.
Because that way I can easily print them. Which is fantastic. My parents, they do not have an iPad. So I just put it on a postcard and send it back all the way to Germany.
Number 5. The iMac.
I would like to take the privilege of showing you what they're going to look like from today on. This is iMac.
Not only did the colors make them look super cool and ahead of their time, the 1998 release of the iMac was arguably the defining moment of Steve Jobs' return to Apple.
Wait till you meet the new iMac.
But they weren't all style and no substance, brought to fruition by famed Apple designer Johnny Ive. The original iMac not only dropped beige plastic as the desktop standard, but also eliminated the floppy disk drive in favor of a little something called the USB.
This is iMac. The whole thing is translucent. You can see into it. It's so cool.
The result was a product that revived Apple's struggling sales and remains popular as a home computer model. Plus, it was the first Apple product to bear the I prefix in its name.
With its stunning Retina 5K display and all of this new capability, the new 27-inch iMac is by far the most amazing iMac we've ever built.
Number 4. Graphical User Interface.
Apple has grown to a $300 million company, becoming the fastest growing corporation in American business history.
Apple's always wanted to make their computers as user-friendly and uncomplicated as possible. But until 1984, computing involved code, command prompts, and, for many laymen, confusion. All that changed with the introduction of the Macintosh and its evolved version of the Graphical User Interface, or GUI. Rather than having users enter all kinds of coding to navigate their computers, Apple instead let people access their data from a desktop, which has been the standard way to use a Mac ever since. Introduced with an equally innovative advertising campaign, this product represented the future of home computing.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
Number 3. iTunes. You may see iTunes as a way to store and buy songs and back up your iPhone. And it certainly does all that. But more importantly, it's likely that iTunes was the product that introduced you to Apple and proved their products weren't nearly as scary as you thought.
1, 2, 3, take my hand and come with me because you look so fine that I really want to make you mine.
Launched in 2001, a few months before the introduction of the first iPod, iTunes was instrumental not only in enticing PC users over to the Mac side, it also changed the way music was consumed by selling whole albums as well as individual songs digitally. It's a vital branch of the Apple tree.
We now have over 200 million customers using iTunes in the cloud. And they've downloaded more than 15 billion songs, movies, TV shows, apps, and books right from the cloud.
Number 2, the iPod.
I don't know what you heard about me, but else you can't get a dollar out of me.
It's gone through many evolutions over the years, but even the first iteration of the iPod impacted how people listened to music. Introduced in 2001, right around the time when MP3 players, digital music, and, gasp, illegal file sharing were first making their mark, the iPod killed portable CD players, CDs, and even stereos. With a wheel that allowed you to shuffle through your songs and playlists with ease, and a set of signature white earbuds, the iPod gave purpose to the iTunes Music Store and pushed digital music even further. It also proved that Apple could do far more than just computers.
So, let's recap. Music, audiobooks, photos, podcasts, both spoken word and video, home movies, music videos, and a whole lot more.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are some honorable mentions.
But when we zoom out of this, what you can see is that because we have 4 times as many pixels, we get really, really sharp text.
Newton turns your handwriting into clear text and cleans up your rough sketches like an artist.
Is it going to be chilly in San Francisco this weekend?
Not too cold. Maybe down to 61 degrees in San Francisco.
What about Napa Valley?
Doesn't seem like it.
Number 1, the iPhone.
Dun 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 dun.
Back in 2007, when the BlackBerry was seemingly the only smartphone game in town, a cocky young upstart put out by Apple decided to change the status quo.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is.
And those infamous Apple Store lines began with the intro of the very first gen iPhone, even though its camera was subpar and it couldn't copy-paste text. But this smartphone combined a cell, MP3 player, and essentially a computer with Apple's intuitive interface and multi-touch technology, and packed it all into a handheld, pocket-friendly package.
What we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen.
With the App Store released about a year after the first iPhone hit stores, the possibilities for this phone expanded exponentially. No wonder it's the world's best-selling phone.
So I just hit this button called Satellite down at the bottom, and it's going to replace the map with satellite images. There we go. And I can just double tap in.
Do you agree with our list? What do you think is Apple's greatest ever innovation? With new top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device.